Well, hello, this is Jeff Gaudiosi, and you're on misplacedstraws.com where music comes to life. And my guest today has been a friend of the site from the very beginning, and it's been far too long since we've had him on again. You know him from the hundreds of classic album covers he's designed for bands like Fate's Warning, the Allman Brothers, Uriah Heep, Extreme, and many others. He's recently made a couple of big announcements, including one about how fans can get some access to his classic work. Here to talk about all of it is Ioannis. Welcome back, my friend.
Yeah, wonderful evening. How are you?
Good, good. So we mentioned this couple of big announcements. Talk to me a bit about you just signed with Deco Records to get some of your work out there to everyone.
Yeah, me and Deco have worked together on a number of album covers, and they approached me about doing something together, and I thought it was a great opportunity because primarily my store, what I sell is very limited edition prints, and they're usually, a bit expensive, and I have gotten requests from so many fans who said, "Gee, I love your work, but I just cannot." afford, the prints.
Yeah.
There's nothing they could do about that. So Deco offered me a deal about doing merchandising, which I thought was great to work with them. Um, because I mostly know for my album covers, but I have a fan base, who collects, who's into science fiction, fantasy art, because it falls into that category, comic book art. I have people who are into gaming and they like that kind of artwork and everything. So we're going to be releasing about, I think, 12 pieces, posters, which you could buy them unframed or framed, I think, and they could bundle them with, there'll be t-shirts. And we're also doing puzzles, which is a big thing nowadays. A lot of rock bands actually have licensed their album covers to be used as puzzles. So I guess us old fogies, so we get older. So like rock and roll now, but we still like now we want to do puzzles, so it's a lot of fun. So yeah, been working on that for a while, and we launch this Friday, as a matter of fact. You could go to Deco Entertainment to their website where you could find that. I have my own website section, and an easier way is you can also go to dangerousage.com, which is my website. Go to shop, and the first, I think, button available is for the high-end prints. The second button is for the hyper gallery, and we'll talk about that in a second, and what in London and what they're doing with me in the UK. And then the third button says merchandising. So if you click merchandising, it'll take you to all this artwork and you'll see it advertised in all kinds of
Yeah.
places. We're doing a deal with Gold Mine. There'll be all kinds of other outlets that are going to be provided.
And can you let us know what bands will be in that first release of posters and shirts
Yeah,
and
we
everything?
did. I went with, artwork that was, I've done, like you said, a number of album covers, but not necessarily all of them will be illustrations or paintings. I worked, I owned my own design firm. So we approached each project as to whatever the needs of the band was. And it could have been an artwork, it could be a photograph, it could be a digital piece of art, it could be a photo of the band, it could be all kinds of stuff. These are primarily, obviously, my artwork, my paintings. So it could go beyond just the people who like rock and roll. But there's artwork from Leonard Skinner, Bon Jovi, um, Fate's Warning, Styx, um, Uriah Heep, Bob Weir. Um, just trying to think off the top of my head, and a bunch of other things. Yeah, but it's a good collection. It's about good 12 pieces, I believe. Oh, Alan
Nice.
Parsons. I forgot about that. That's a good one.
Yep.
A lot of people like the Alan Parsons project. Yeah, it's a pretty exciting time. It's just a lot of fun. Hey, I hate to do the unintentional plug, but hey, we're right in time for the holidays, folks. And it's affordable.
Yeah, can't beat that.
Yeah.
And you mentioned also something else coming up on your website. Talk a little about that.
Well, another thing which is really more dear to my heart was uh, Mick Rock, the legendary, incredible photographer many years, was a friend of mine for at least 35, 38 years. And we worked on a ton of stuff together. And a few summers ago, we got together and we were just talking, just in general. And Mick said, we ought to do something together. I mean, I don't want to do something commercial. I want to do something artsy, some really for art. So I said, Mick, I got an idea. I said, I've sort of done this before. Why don't you select a photograph you haven't published that you really like? Let me have the photo, and I will print it onto a canvas, and then I'll go in and retouch the canvas, and I'll create an original piece of art. Both me and you could sign it. Obviously, and start a series of paintings like that. We figure about 4 to 5 paintings, and then we can produce prints from that also. And you could do it. So Mick was very excited on the idea, and the first one we settled on, which is one of the bands he's most known for, was Queen. So he produced to me this. I mean, there's a Freddie Mercury, this photograph he took, and there's two ways, Freddie is known. There's what he looked like when Mick Rock photographed him, which was, the Queen 2 album cover
Yeah.
and the way
The
Freddie looked.
long hair. Yeah.
Yeah, in the mid-70s when they were primarily, progressive metal rock band. And then obviously the way he looked in Live Aid, which, the whole change in style. I mean, obviously my favorite is the mixed period. And it was from 1972 and it's just amazing shot. So I was blown away. I did it. We did the painting. One of my collectors immediately bought the original. I didn't have enough time to even have it in display. I don't want to tell you the amount, but it was ridiculous. And it was, you couldn't say no, and obviously me and Mix with the money. Then we got ready to do the prints. And then the next two we were going to do was Jerry Garcia and Keith Richards, which I sort of started. Then unfortunately, it was that summer of 2021, I believe, right? 2021, yeah, 2022. I can't remember exactly, but then Make did an exhibition. I was there in that September, and it was, right as we were coming out of COVID, and he got sick, and unfortunately, he never recovered, and we lost him a few months later. So I didn't do the prints out of respect for Mick. I didn't want to look like I was, But a few months ago, his estate reached out to me and said, let's do this. So I talked to the Hyper Gallery, who represents me. They're very excited about it. And we did a print. We issued it. It's very limited. It's only 60 prints. They're available at thehypergallery.com. You can click Ioannis or you can click Queen, and they'll come up. If you go to Ioannis, search immediately, all the prints that I've done with him will come up. So the artwork that I did for the 50th anniversary with Styx is there. The artwork that I did with Alan Parsons is there. My artwork that I did with Deep Purple is there. And again, so it's as special as it's very limited. It's really high end, beautiful reproduction. It's hand signed and numbered by me. It's embossed by the Hyper Gallery symbol, and also it is stamped by the Mick Rock estate, which makes it an official Mick Rock. Obviously because they're not able to sign it, a Mick Rock print. So actually, they're going to be available they're available now. You can actually go to them. We're going to go full force on Mick's birthday, which is coming up in 2 weeks. We're going to go full force on that. And I didn't know this was going to happen, but I did an interview. Me and Mick did an interview talking about our work and the print. And I just did it for posterity and never knowing, what happened. Yeah. So the interview is available. You could see it too, which is really kind of cool.
Oh, that's great.
And he talks about Queen too and how the whole thing happened and what it was like working with Queen and Freddie Mercury. It's really, really very, very cool. So yeah, a lot of exciting stuff. And obviously the news that I just broke this morning.
Yeah, I saw that online. I was going to bring that up. Some pretty big Led Zeppelin news.
Yeah, Led Zeppelin. Maybe you're aware of it, you're not aware of what's happening. They've been working on this for I don't know 6, 7 years. So and it was ready about 2 years ago, and it's called Becoming Led Zeppelin, and it chronicles them from 1969 to I believe 1973, and they able to obviously just like they did with the Beatles films,
Mhm.
make everything, look spectacular, quadraphonic sound, and it involves performances never before seen, rare, behind the scenes movies, personal home movies, them hanging out, interviews. None of this has ever reached.
Yeah.
Um, and what Zeppelin did is, like they did in 1977, when it became available, they refused to allow it to go to streaming.
Mhm.
They would only do a deal if a company only put it out in film theaters. So that's why there was a delay.
Mhm.
So Sony Pictures Classics took it over. It's only going to play in an IMAX theater with a quadraphonic sound system. It's a pretty smart move by them,
Yeah.
because what they're feeling is we want you to see it and want you to experience what it was like. And you
Right.
cannot experience what it was like unless you have the sound of
Mhm.
what we were like, to be able to see it. So it's coming out late February. I mean, you're probably going to start seeing trailers flooding right around Thanksgiving. And I think it's coming out late February and so on. So on the heels of that, Sterling Publishing, who had released the Get the Lead Out book back in 2008 with me, approached us about reissuing the book but expanding it.
Mhm.
So I'm doing a whole number of new paintings. There's like a whole number of new chapters have been added that picks up the story where we left it off because so much happened. I mean, we left it off in the early 90s, and then
Yeah.
obviously they had the reunion concert. There was the famous court case about Stairway to Heaven. There's all these other things that happened. So, and it's got new artwork, new stuff. It's spanking, and it's coming out the fall, early September of 2025, on the heels of the film.
Mhm.
So I'm pretty thrilled about that. I think it's going to be amazing. Obviously I'm going to go on the road and do talk shows and exhibits and exhibit the artwork and so on. Uh,
That's
actually, actually,
fantastic.
yeah, actually, I'm going to be doing the same thing with Deco.
Mhm.
So you talk so much, but just to give you some more info, it's like I just remember Deco is going to help sponsor exhibits for me where you can come in, you could see me the artwork, you could see the prints, and obviously they'll have all their stuff available. You could buy. So far, I have scheduled two shows. One is they're all, both in December, middle December.
Mhm.
One is up at Cape Cod. I believe it's the 13th or 14th. It's with the band Wishbone Ash who's
Mhm.
performing, and then 3 days later at the Milford Performance Center. Yeah, I mean all the stuff will be on my website,
Yeah.
obviously, and on my Facebook page, and people who follow me. We announce it. It'll be really kind of cool because there'll be a really nice. There'll be a VIP party. There'll be the stuff. There'll be a jam band that's going to perform.
Mhm.
So it's come on down. I'll be on a Saturday from 3 to 6, and bring the kiddies.
Definitely sounds like a fun time. Been to some of your
Oh,
exhibits.
and bring your checkbook.
Yeah, it's amazing as a rock fan to go to your exhibits and just kind of sit there and just see the history, just
Oh,
looking at
thank
the
you. That's so
walls,
cool.
you see the bands you grew up with. And, are there any that when you put them up there, you still kind of take a step back and say, yeah, that one was really special, or, it brings back a memory of doing it? Are there
It's
any that
like
really stand out for
it's
you?
like trying to pick like I mean who your favorite
Yeah.
kid is. If you have a family, it's kind of hard. But no, there are a few that make sense because I think they happen at a specific time and bring specific memories.
Mhm.
So I think that I'm more attached to them because of that than anything. And they were also key points where my career
Right.
sort of took off or improved because it did. You're never really aware of it when you're doing it. You just do what you got to do because
Mhm.
it's a gig and you're trying to do
Mhm.
the job and get paid. It's later as the years come in that you kind of sit back and look at it. I mean, I had no idea Fate's Warning Awaken the Guardian would become such a I mean, Jesus, every time I go to any best of progressive heavy metal album covers. It's like in the top five, if not top. I mean, which is just mind blowing. And I remember back what I had to go through to do that, and they were not pleasant memories. which is a whole story for another day. But it got done. It worked. The Uriah Heep,
Yeah.
Wake the Sleeper has meaning to me because it was the first time I got to work with them.
Mhm.
And Box approached me. It was a great story behind how that happened. The Allman Brothers is another good example. The very first album cover I ever did was still dear to my heart, which is the album cover for Art in America, a band that's long since been forgotten. It was like a progressive AOR band. They came out in '83, but that album cover got me a lot of notoriety, and immediately I started getting commissions. And you know, I guess the only thing I regret is I've sold a number of these paintings
Mhm.
for, was a price I couldn't
Yeah.
say no to. But now, looking back at it, I just I want some of those back.
Yeah.
I feel like, I sold one of my kids.
Mhm.
It feels that bad. And I'm seriously contemplating, I'm working with a financial guy about making offers to some of these guys and see if they would be willing to sell it back if I give them something different,
Yeah.
as a placeholder and maybe some extra money.
Mhm.
I don't know, we will see. But yeah, that's the whole thing. Uh, but I'm always excited about the next thing I'm going to do and the next thing I'm going to try out and see what happens.
Do you have any bands you're working with in the pipeline?
Yeah,
Or, I mean, I know
yeah,
you're
there
really
is.
tied up with all this other stuff.
Yeah, there is. 2025. There's
Yeah.
three. One of them is a major, major act that you'll know, but I'm not allowed to
Yeah.
say anything because they don't have a release date and they want to announce to their fan base that guess what, we're
Yeah.
doing an album because they know they're going to get a serious, massive reaction to that.
Mhm.
Um, but I got to tell you, it's a long road from being approached to being commissioned to executing
Mhm.
to getting approvals to finally making it out to shoot. I mean, there have been situations where we're down to the 11th hour and everything is go, go, go. And all of a sudden the record company changes its mind or the manager changes his mind or something goes wrong or they decide they want to go in a different direction or something. And it's happened. And you just
Mhm.
gotta, I mean, you get paid, but
Yeah.
it's of no solace when you create a piece of art specifically for that and it
Mhm.
never sees the light of day. It's really funny. A lot of them are my well-known covers. A bunch of them actually were done from other
Mhm.
bands and didn't make it, and other bands wind up buying them. And
Yeah.
one of them was Styx, the Brave New World one. The artwork was originally done in 1985 for Emerson, Lake and Powell and
Mhm.
submit it. And we went all the way down the line until the record company decided they were going to keep it in-house to save money of all things
Mhm.
and not venture with an outside firm, even though the band loved the artwork. So when Steve came to me for Brave New World, I said, well, I got this painting, I think it may fit. Want to take a look? And they're like, oh, that's great. It's perfect. We want that. And that's what happened. And actually, there were two submissions, the one for Styx
Mhm.
and one for Saga.
Mhm.
And the same thing happened. I showed it to Saga, and they're like, "No, we want that painting."
Mhm.
And so uh, sometimes that happens a lot. I do artwork. I mean, with nobody specific in
Yeah.
mind, and then bands see it and they go, "Oh God, I want that." That,
Well, and it's kind of funny because the cover for that Emerson, Lake and Paul record was horrible. Does that look like the three square heads?
yeah, it was
Yeah.
it was an imitation of a cigarette ad,
Yeah.
1930s, I believe, in a French magazine.
Mhm.
And but it was the '80s, and everybody was sort of looking for like if you remember, yes,
Mhm.
stop using Roger Dean,
Yeah.
90125 artwork. Everybody's looking for very strong graphic symbols,
Mhm.
bright colors, the whole Duran Duran look, that kind of stuff. And they really gravitated away from colorful, interesting album covers.
Mhm.
But of course, everything's a pendulum and everything just started to swing
Yeah.
back by the late '80s, early '90s, and of course the rise of classic rock. In the '90s brought all that back. You
Yeah.
know, and now
Yeah.
we're buying vinyl like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah,
Who would have
exactly.
thought?
Well, one thing that I don't think you and I have ever talked about that I was really been thinking about over the past couple of weeks.
Sure.
I was in Cleveland at the Rock Hall induction ceremony a couple of weeks ago, and did the pilgrimage as always when we're there walking through the hall. And, at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, you have your performers, but you have artists, you have managers, you have lawyers, you have, producers,
Yep.
record company people. You don't have cover artists. And
Well, yeah,
art is so tied together with music that, what's your thought on that?
I just think it yeah, I'm very surprised with that because especially now, what's going on with vinyl artwork
Hmm.
has come back in such a major way. I mean, the Grammys did it, and they would award a Grammy for the best
Yep.
album package, and then they still do it, but they phased it out where you don't see it on TV anymore.
Yeah. You
It's
find out the
like
next day in the
yeah,
write-up.
yeah. Somebody said, you were nominated. Oh, by the way, you won a Grammy. Oh, okay. And there's like no ceremony or anything. But yeah, I think they should because I mean, especially in the 70s, before there was MTV, before there was uh, all that stuff. I mean, the way you sold an album was based on artwork. I
Mhm.
mean, that was just a fact. The way it was done in the 70s and 80s. And it's just so funny now what's happened where the old fogies are not, it's just not the old fogies that are driving the vinyl sales. It's youth. And the reason why is they feel completely uh, disenchanted and unattached to downloading something. It doesn't feel real to them. So what they do is like if they like a band or an album, they'll download it, immediately have access to it. But when they become a fan, they want to have
Yep.
something real, something physical. And and a CD ain't doing it anymore. And that's why vinyl, which actually I think last year, I'm pretty sure about this, eclipsed CDs 2 to 1
Mhm.
in sales. And of course, the labels have caught on to these record companies, and that's why you're seeing all these tons of repackages and remasters, and with vinyl because they can make a lot of money. You cannot copy a vinyl or download it or do file sharing or anything like that. I mean, people who are buying that they want the package, so there's a massive renaissance of that going on. And it's interesting, and the bands take notice because they realize the more attractive the artwork is that they have, the more merchandising they could sell, which is very important to them right now. That's the bottom. I mean, so if you have a great piece of artwork, Iron Maiden, one of the most
Yep.
prime examples. Um, they know they'll be able to move just a lot of merch. I mean, Iron Maiden, I think, makes more money in merch a night than they do in ticket sales.
Oh
You know,
yeah.
even though they play massive concerts. It's just a fact. I mean, Kiss took it to the ultimatum, of
Mhm.
course. Yeah, so hopefully that's something that's not going to be overlooked because there was just so many legendary artists who really created the band's identity. I mean, Dean with Yes, Storm Thurgerson and Hypnosis with Pink Floyd.
Mhm.
God, I mean that triangle. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, when
it's-
you think of the band, you think of the art.
yeah,
It goes hand in hand, and it just really hit me when I was walking through it this time that that's never been recognized, and I think it's definitely about time that it is. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, even if I mean, they should just be like a section or
Yeah.
a
Mhm.
thing or in the Rock and Roll of Fame that features, famous iconic album
Yeah.
covers. I mean, it just makes sense. I mean, it's funny how important they are. Uh, Sony just made that huge deal with Pink Floyd.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the deal is that complete ownership they wanted of the images. Uh, so Pink Floyd, I remember I had to buy them from the guys who own
Yeah.
the estate of Storm. He's passed away also, to get them. And listen, they're not buying this stuff to press more CDs and vinyl. They got that already.
Yeah.
It's what they're going to do with the merchandising of this stuff.
Mhm.
It's you're going to have Pink Floyd merch coming out of your ears. Never mind about how music is going to be everywhere,
Yeah.
which is, through streaming and everything. Streaming meaning not being able to go on stream Pink Floyd. It's the amount of money that they make leasing it to commercials, documentaries, movies, the soundtrack. I mean, it's a fact, right? I mean, that's what's driving these, just going off on a tangent here.
Mhm.
That's what's driving the huge sales in the catalogs.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I mean, when first streaming came about, they thought it was the end of the world because they could make money selling vinyls and stuff. But then all of a sudden, they realized that streaming allowed territories everywhere to be able to access that music, and they could earn money from it. I mean, you know, you're able to distribute vinyl, say in Asia, or Europe, or America. Start going to the Far East or Eastern Europe or Asia. It was all bootlegs.
Yeah.
It couldn't be controlled. Now they're able to do that. By doing that, they increase the popularity of the band, and and that makes the people familiar with the music and like it, which what people are still listening to the Beatles and Black Sabbath today and stuff like that, which was unheard of back in the 80s or 90s. People didn't want to hear old music; they wanted to see what was next.
Yeah.
Um, and of course, they also realize that when they play songs in a commercial or they place it in a movie or a documentary or a television series, I mean, Kate Bush was a prime example of what
Mhm.
happened.
Yep. And
No,
Stranger Things.
it just,
Yep.
yeah, it just took off. I mean,
Mhm.
she made like $1 million that week alone. People just all of a sudden, who's this Kate Bush?
Yeah.
Never heard of her. And they start downloading her music, all these kids.
Yeah.
Um, they just make a fortune on this stuff, which is why they're paying this ridiculous sums of money because they know it's iconic music. It's never going to go away. And if anything, it will just get bigger and bigger and bigger. It's a certain that amount of time between late 60s and mid 80s that is just these bands, it can never happen again, never be
Mhm.
reformed. And it's
Yep.
such a phenomenal thing that's going on because the paradigm, to leave you with this thought, the paradigm used to be that the older of the band got, the smaller was its value.
Mhm.
Because we lived in a time when we grew up in the 70s and 80s where by the time you were, into Cheap Trick, move over,
Mhm.
here comes the police,
Yeah.
move over, here comes you too,
Yeah.
and so on, right? It was like every 2 years, everything just sort of circulated. And then all of a sudden, something from 1979 to 1983, looking back at release 79, they already looked old and outdated
Mhm.
and so on. That all stopped in the late 90s. It just became, I mean, if you had told me back when I was 19 or 20, by the year 2024, the biggest band still would be Hendrix, the Beatles, Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin. I'd be like, what are you, crazy?
Mhm.
Where's all the new bands?
Yeah.
It just is
Classic
what it
music
is.
never goes out of style.
It's an interesting time. And of course, coincidentally, for me, this is what's happening with artwork,
Yep.
album cover art. It's becoming extremely more and more valuable. A Roger Dean piece of art, early 80s, mid late 80s, even up to early 90s, you could probably acquire anywhere between 300,000 to 500,000. You cannot touch a Roger Dean now under $1 or $2 million. It's just insane. It's insane, you know.
Yep. Well, we've been spending some time here with Giannis. If you're watching this on the website or on the podcast, all of the links that we talked about to get involved in these projects he has coming out will be there. Links to his website, to Deco, to the Zeppelin book, and everything else that's coming out. And my friend, as always, it is a pleasure having you on. Next time, we're not waiting so long. We're doing this again, and
Great. Well, I'll invite you to the exhibition in Milford, Connecticut. It's a beautiful downtown.
definitely.
Nice. Be on the list, and I'm looking forward to seeing you there. Maybe we could do a coverage. The other thing I wanted to do is, if you guys are up to it, but we could discuss it later. Is we like to give me and Deck like to give a giveaway. So if maybe what we could do is, if people send you email and they can name their favorite cover for me, we will pick somebody and then we will send them a really nice care package.
That sounds great. We'll definitely set that up.
So we'll set that up for your website.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, man. Take care.
You too.